What's good, people? It's about that time to randomly relate reverse rants, no hate. So, listen, I want to make some mentions about Kell Brooke versus Terrence Crawford fight. And one of the things that I've been noticing, there's a lot of people who are they're split between why Terrence Crawford won versus why Kell Brooke lost. And pretty much for those that saying that Kell Brooke lost because Kell Brooke is a damaged fighter. In his prime, he would have destroyed Terrence Crawford. Or for the people that saying Terrence Crawford only won because Kell Brooke is washed up. And look, there's certain things in both of those comments that I see some kind of truth to, but not the point that Kell lost because he's washed up or Terrence Crawford won because Kell was washed up. No, that's not what I say. And what I'm seeing and hearing is a lot of people trying to defend each fighter. So they're trying to chop each fighter down by the legs with insults and criticism. I'm gonna tell you what I saw, and I'm gonna tell you what I questioned and why I questioned it. Okay. First off, for me, before there was any mentions of Kell Brooke versus Terrence Crawford, 3 fights ago, okay, before that, 4 fights ago now, for Kell Brooke didn't look the same to me. But the fact that he won the fights, people were more like, yeah, well, he won. That's the whole point, that he won. Yeah, he won, but he didn't look like himself. The Kell Brooke, the prime Kell Brooke, the Kell Brooke before he took the loss to Triple G, okay? During the fight against Errol Spence, he was holding his own. Against Triple G, he was holding his own. But let me explain the thing that people don't get. See, a fight strategy is not just based on, I'm going to go out there and destroy you in round 1. It may take time. And a lot of times, it's like Floyd telling Oscar De La Hoya, don't get tired. Like Floyd telling Zab Judah, he's a front runner. So Floyd doesn't have to go out there and try to knock you out early. Floyd can go out there, apply his strategy, do the things that he has to do to cause you to do exactly what he claimed about you. You're going to get tired. And that's what I'm really going to step up. You're just a front runner. You fight good for the first half of the fight, then you fade. And that's what I'm really going to put the pressure on. Listen. So if a fighter is saying, okay, this guy's faster than I am, he can outbox me, possibly, but eventually I'm going to start to catch him. A lot of times it backfires. I always say it's not a good strategy to depend solely on your opponent to do wrong and make mistakes that you're going to capitalize on. You have to a lot of times create those openings. Now, look at Amir Khan, for example. I said I can see him outboxing Canelo, outspeeding him, being able to just get in, get out. It's not so much he's outboxing him, he's just faster than Canelo, a lot faster. And I said I can see him winning until he gets caught. And as soon as he gets caught flush, it's over. That's exactly what happened. It don't matter if it was first round, second round, 10th round, whatever. It doesn't make a difference. When we say the guy was doing good until he got caught, yeah, but that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. Remember Conor McGregor looking at Floyd Mayweather saying, he's too small. He's too small. Remember that. He thought, this guy's too small. When I hit him, he's not going to be able to take my shots. I'm too big, too strong. And that's where his confidence came from. Completely overlooking how Floyd Mayweather is a master at boxing. Regardless to all of he doesn't hit that hard, and all the crap that people say about him. At the end of the day, that whole he's too small and having false confidence, it backfired on Conor McGregor. I don't care about all the, but he's not a real boxer. All the shit that you saying afterwards, we knew before. Now, pause. People love to knock on my door or ring my bell when I start recording. Anyway, y'all, So back to the video. So when you look at what the comments were about both sides, look, for the people that's trying to tear either fighter down, like I said, I can see certain truths in both of those claims, but it's different with the overall scope of what I saw. Okay. Case in point with Kell Brook, he didn't look the same in those 3 fights. For people that was defending Kell Brook to say, but he won the fight, stop hating. No. For those who were just hating on Kell Brook, well, that applies to them. Okay? For me, I can clearly see his sharpness wasn't the same. His speed wasn't the same. His timing and coordination, it was there, but he was struggling. It was kind of like watching Ali as Cassius Clay or as the young Muhammad Ali versus when he came back somewhat, okay, to where you could clearly see, nah, it's not the same. But that Ali still was great enough to beat a Joe Frazier in the rematch of George Foreman, or a Ken Norton at some point. And the thing is, when you look and remember, like when Ali came out of he didn't come out of retirement, not directly out of retirement, but by the time he was 32 years old when he fought George Foreman, okay, and people were saying, can Muhammad Ali get his 32-year-old body in the shape that he needs to beat a monster like George Foreman? They made 32 sound like 62, okay? George Foreman beating Joe Frazier the way he did, beating Ken Norton the way he did. Yeah. Nobody thought Ali had a chance to win. And especially out of those 4 guys, Ali is the guy that has the least hardest punch, which was, okay, he was never the hardest puncher, so did it really matter? No. But George Foreman had a reputation that, hey, man, this guy, I don't see anybody beating George. Now, Terrence Crawford has a reputation as being a master boxer. Okay, pause. So, with that being the case, then he has the boxing skills. Now, when I'm watching, so before I get to that, when it took Ali to go in there and beat Foreman for people to believe it. Okay? And he did it. Now, when I was looking at Kell Brook, I said, once the fight was announced, looking at what I saw in those 3 fights, I said, I don't know what he has left, because after those 3 fights, and these were not against like elite level fighters, okay? And even though he won, there were moments in there where like things that he used to do, like you could see him, like it wasn't the same Kell Brook. And going against another elite fighter, it's like, I don't know what he has left to beat Kell, for him to compete with Terrence Crawford. Like, I don't know. That was the question. So I looked at it like, can he come back? And maybe a lot of times it takes a certain opponents to bring that out. Just like when Ali came back and fought when he fought George Foreman, he did what people thought he couldn't do. And of course, he went on and won some more big fights. But the point of what I'm saying is, looking at Kell Brook, it just that feeling. It was like the same thing, like similar. Like, yeah, I don't know, man, because those guys that he beat, like, yeah, he won the fight. So my thing is, take your emotions out. Take being a fan of Kell Brook out of it. Look at it for what it is. You can want him to win. You can be with him in spirit, or however you want to say it. But reality is, does he have enough left to beat Terrence Crawford? That was my question. Kell Brook was a solid fighter. He's a warrior, always had heart, and I always liked Kell Brook as a fighter. But that has nothing to do with what I saw. Okay? For people, okay, that want to bash Terrence Crawford and say he only won because of, look, he may have very well still beaten Kell Brook in his prime. See, my thing is this. That's not what the conversation is about. But I'm going to say this for the fact that I don't agree with Kell Brook would have destroyed Terrence Crawford in his prime. No, I feel like it would have been a different fight. It probably more than likely would have went 12 rounds. But I don't see Kell Brook outboxing Terrence Crawford at no point in his career. Do I see him outboxing Terrence Crawford? But can we prove that? No. Is it necessary to even bring up? No. But I'm saying that for this reason. For the people that saying he only won because Kell Brook was washed up, we don't know that, and I don't agree with that. Necessarily agree with that. I think Terrence Crawford wins regardless between the two of those fighters. But I think it's a much better and closer fight than what we saw. Okay? You can't take anything from Terrence Crawford. Do I believe Kell Brook was damaged goods? Yes. But he accepted the fight. He talked real confident. He sounded ready. He looked like he was in shape. So all of the people that's talking about how, even for Kell, they say I'm the bigger guy, and they talk about he's going to balloon up in weight, he's going to be too big. Look, we've seen many times guys fight guys that's much bigger. Look at Floyd. Floyd, damn near everybody, when he went up to welterweight, damn near everybody he was fighting was bigger and would come in the ring bigger than him, much bigger on fight night. So, and he's not the only fighter. I mean, Terry Norris, I remember several times, like, wow. I remember people, casual guys, going, why is this big guy fighting this little guy? Because you could clearly see the size difference. So you might have came, fight night, you might have been 154, 153 and a half. Fight night, these guys like 175. So it's like, it happens. Okay, but that was my question. It's like, what does he have left? Can he, get back to, what he was, or even close to that? Can he? Because I clearly didn't see Kell Brook as the same fighter. Now, before the fight happened, Terrence Crawford was him and Bo Mack was going back and forth with Keith Thurman. And they said, Keith Thurman ain't got no belt, he ain't no champion. Who the hell is Keith Thurman? Which to me, I said, well, that only makes sense if the next person Terrence Crawford fight has a title. But if he is not going to fight Keith Thurman and say that it's because he doesn't have a title, and they also said that Keith was overpricing himself, but then it makes no sense to go fight somebody else without a title. Well, for namesake at least, Kell Brook, his name is as big as Keith Thurman's, okay? So, a lot of people was criticizing Terrence Crawford, saying he's choosing this guy because he has a name, but he's washed up. And pretty much that's what it looked like to a lot of people. And I can see the logic in why people would think that. But then at the same time, if you're looking at Terrence Crawford as a fighter and understand, like, when have you known Terrence Crawford to duck anybody? You see what I mean? So on that note, it's like, well, no. So I don't agree with that at all. My thing about the fight itself was you have two guys, who want to fight each other. The opportunity's there. They took it. Somebody had to lose. No, I did not see Kell Brook as being the same fighter as he was back in the day. But also, like I said, I don't think it really would have mattered as far as the outcome of Terrence Crawford being the winner. But we don't know that. So it's not necessary to talk about what he used to do. Now, really, it's like, okay, the fight happened. Let's move on. What happens for each fighter afterwards, which I'm going to get into. But let me just say, no matter who want to take credit from Bud Crawford, you can't. It doesn't matter what they're saying. It doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter. All the hate, the idiotic nonsense, you got to overlook that. Take that aside. Don't let people's ignorance affect your judgment on the reality and the outcome of that fight. Okay? Even going into that fight, what we should have been looking at. So my thing was, no, Kell Brook didn't look like the same fighter to me. And we saw him. He got stopped. He got hurt with a jab. Okay? He got hurt with a jab. And the fact that those two fights, the one with Triple G with Errol Spence, I think that took a lot out of him as well. The wear and tear is different, man. And people don't understand that. So even when people say, oh, but he looked good against Triple G. Yeah, Triple G was just bigger. Well, yeah, that's part of what my point of when people are using strategies like, look, he's getting hit now by a much bigger, stronger guy. Whereas, yeah, you might can come in there the same weight, but it's not naturally the weight that you fight at. So walking around that weight is one thing. But same thing. If it was about his size compared to Terrence Crawford, well, then you can't look and say, oh, but it's only because Triple G was bigger. Because For the people that was saying Kell Brook is going to be too big, well, you're basically saying he would have had the same advantage over Crawford that Triple G had over him. So is it necessary to point that out? Well, one thing that you can say, okay, is, and what people need to stop overlooking, Terrence Crawford is a legit welterweight. Okay, forget all that he came from a lighter weight. People focus on these little things like they act like certain fighters are the only ones that did it. He's legit a welterweight. He has the boxing skills. He's a threat to anybody at welterweight. Okay? He might even be able to go to 154 for all we know. Okay? We don't know. But he's legit welterweight. So I don't want to hear the excuses about Kell Brook was drained. Now him not being the same fighter, I questioned that watching his last 3 fights, because it was like he won the fights, but I can see things in fighters, okay, that other people overlook because of their emotional attachment to that fighter. I like Kell Brook as a fighter, but it doesn't matter if it was the shoe on the other foot. I've been saying the same thing. Like, does Crawford have, what does he have left to beat Brooke? We know Crawford's on top of his game, but Brooke didn't look impressive. He didn't impress me in those 3 fights. Those 3 fights that I saw him have, he won. And at that time, like I said, there was no mentions about him versus Crawford. That wasn't even a conversation. Now, they were still trying to get him and Amir Khan. For whatever reason that fight didn't happen, I don't know, but that fight should have happened a long time ago. Now, moving on from that, and let me say, look, man, salute to both fighters. Salute to Terrence Crawford and Kell Brook for stepping up to make this fight happen. Salute on a performance that, by Terrence Crawford. He did what he had to do, a solid performance. And salute to Kell Brook for having heart and getting there, willing to mix it up. It's as simple as that. And before I move on, let me say, look, the first 2 rounds was a filling out process. And people that, but he looked good for the first 2. Listen, it's a fight. It's scheduled for 12. It's not about looking good for 5 rounds, for 3 rounds, for 6 rounds. It's about doing your best and trying to win a 12-round fight. So whether it come by knockout, whether it come by decision, so be it. It is what it is. But bottom line is, Kell Brook has experience. That's what you saw playing out in the first 2 rounds. Okay? That's what you saw. And it was the filling out process. And once Bud Crawford saw what he needed to see, once he processed all his data, it's like, okay, now let me start doing what I have to do. I could sit here and break the fight down, who was doing what and why, but that's not necessary. So moving on. Where does Terrence Crawford go? Hey, man, you have the Earl Spencers out there. You have the Keith Thurmans. You have the Sean Porters. The Garcias. Look, he has options. To be honest with you, and this is what I want to say, in terms of this video to close it out. What I saw with Kell Brook, it's hard to watch a guy that was just a solid fighter get beaten 4 rounds. And then use your imagination to think, well, next fight he can sharpen up and he'll be different. I don't think so. Because what I'm seeing is a fighter who can't do what he used to. Now, people say for British boxing, or, I say for boxing in general, yeah, British boxing, however, whatever, but for boxing in general, I don't think Kell Brook versus Amir Khan is really worth it right now. Because I don't see either guy performing at their best. From what I saw, watching Kell Brook, to me it doesn't matter who you think is going to win, him or Kell or Amir Khan. This is not the same as Pacquiao Mayweather, because people like, well, they were old. No, Pacquiao Mayweather, they both were still at the top of their game. Okay, they may not have people now. I think people say they wasn't what they were. Here's what's funny: Pacquiao's a champion right now at 40. So years later, when you guys are writing him off because of that loss to Floyd, look at what happened. Floyd basically was at a point where, okay, it's cat and mouse, it's chess. I'm going to counter, I'm going to keep distance, but I'm not going to attack the way I used to. But it is what it is. The difference in this is we have a fighter that's damaged. I don't see Kell Brook or Amir Khan being what they used to be. Okay, and they're neither one of them. I can't see them competing with elite level fighters. Pacquiao and Mayweather were still the two best at the time, and Pacquiao right now is still one of the best current being active and holding the title in the division. So you understand what I'm saying? I don't see that. Um, to have two guys who's just a shell of themselves going in and compete just to say we got the fight, to me is like, don't get greedy. Appreciate what Kell Brook and Amir Khan did. I really don't. I mean, they're two grown men. Whatever they choose to do is what they choose to do, and I wish them nothing but the best. But at the same time, I really don't see this fight as being relevant. This fight should have happened a long time ago. And understand they both suffered a bunch of losses. You know, Pacquiao got knocked out by Marquez. He bounced back, and then there was talk about the fight being like, hey, look at what the fight did. It broke all kinds of records, okay? But at the same time, it's like, you know, enough is enough. Hopefully, whatever the decision that they make, man, like, you know, like I said, I hope that each fighter make enough money that they can support their families, have generational wealth and all that good stuff, or whatever. But they, you know, that they can walk with their health intact, have more than enough money than what they need. Okay, boxers don't get pensions and all of that. I just feel like after seeing what I saw, and then people still expecting Kell Brook to go out there and perform like he's going to just turn the clock back and greatness is going to strike once again. To me, that's just unfair. It's not realistic. I think, you know, his better days are behind him. Amir Khan's better days are behind him. We just got to be, you know, hey, look at what they've done. And I'm not saying that Kell Brook or Amir Khan can't fight somebody and win, but as far as elite level fighters, no, absolutely not. I don't see it happening. And to be honest with you, after seeing him get stopped like that, Terrence Crawford is not the only person that could do that to Kell Brook. That's what people need to understand. Kell Brook is definitely not the same fighter he used to be. I don't care how much of a fan you are. This is, like I said, it's not about tearing the fighters down. There's no need to do that. Let's just be realistic. If you're going to tell me you saw the same speed and timing, you saw the same coordination, the same movement, the same counter punching ability. If you telling me that you saw this was a prime Kell Brook, then you're just being delusional and being biased because you like Kell Brook. I like Kell Brook as a fighter too. I like Terrence Crawford as a fighter, but it's had nothing, who I like or what, that has nothing to do with my judgment. And anybody been following the channel, anybody that's part of the family, you already know that's how I get down. I don't do the bias thing. I don't lean toward, no, it's I'm calling what I see. And Kell Brook is no longer that guy. Terrence Crawford still is that guy. And that is what the difference is. And the worst thing, you know, now for people that want to argue about it and want to sit here and try to make unvalid points. Now, if Kell Brook goes in there and gets badly like hurt and beaten by someone, then people are going to be, oh man, I feel so bad for him. And, you know, and that's not going to change it either. Now, is it? So it's enough is enough. At some point, you got to realize it's time to hang it up. And if you can't compete with the elite level fighters, then why hang around going to the gym, getting punched in your face, busted up in your ribs, you know, going through all that, just to fight guys who you shouldn't even be fighting. People don't even care to see you fight against. I mean, with all due respect to Roy Jones, we watched Roy Jones go through that. Now, it's your right to fight as long as you want to. But we saw Roy Jones in there getting knocked out, getting beat by guys that he would have smoked out their boots in his prime. So is it necessary? You know, even like now when Roy Jones is fighting Mike Tyson, people are acting like this is a 20-something-year-old prime Roy Jones versus a prime Mike Tyson. It's like, it's an exhibition for what it's going to be. We'll see what's going to happen. But, you know, let's not get all overly excited to the point where we start becoming delusional with what we see. Okay? And if that impedes your ability to think sensible, you can't get mad at people for just speaking logic and reason. Okay? I don't want to see any fighter go in there and get seriously hurt. But like I said, you know what comes with the territory. So what I saw was a guy past his prime versus a guy that's still in his prime. And I just don't see a reason for him to go in there and risk getting hurt, you know, doing further damage to himself. You see what Triple D did to his face. You see what Errol Spence did to his face. Now, the only difference between him and Amir Khan is they both have wear and tear. They're both not the same fighter. So it would be two people more equal, okay? More on the same level. But does it really matter at this point? Just does it really matter at this point? Just for the sake of fans saying, "Oh, we finally got the fight." I mean, this fight didn't happen when it should have. If it happened now, it would just look like they're both desperate just to get an opponent. Because to be honest with you, Amir Khan is no longer a headliner. Kell Brooke is no longer a headliner. Okay, and everybody, whether you're British, whether you're American, wherever, the fact that you're a human being, everybody should have enough compassion to understand people get damaged in that ring just to try to prove a point. Kell Brooke doesn't need to hold his head low. He can hold his head high and understand, look, man, I had a solid career. I had some good fights. And, it is what it is. And it's hard for a fighter to come to terms with reality and move on. But, like I said, nobody wants to see Kell get hurt. And I'm pretty sure if he did, everybody would be, oh, man, that's messed up what happened to Kell, man. Damn, I wish he didn't take that fight. So don't sit and just push because you like a fighter. Look, man, Roy Jones, I like Roy Jones as much as I like any fighter. I like him as much as I like Ali, Ray Leonard, the Terry Norrises of the world. Look, reality. When Roy Jones got to the point where when he got knocked out by Antonio Tarver in that second fight, at that point, it's just one of those things that happened. But what did you see? Now the weight that he had to gain and then lose, I believe that affected him because you said in the first fight how Roy was sucking one in the third round. When have you ever seen Roy get tired? But what you also noticed too, Roy Jones was more flat-footed. He was more stationary. He wasn't moving like he used to. Now he's getting hit with shots he normally could get out of the way of. And his reflexes, his movement, all his athleticism was a huge part of his success. It wasn't just his straight that he had. Roy doesn't get credit for his boxing IQ, but Roy was so talented and so physically gifted that people overlooked that. Okay, and when those things weren't there anymore, when they started to fade, now it was like, okay, now it's easier for me to catch up to you and hit you now. And, after that, Roy just didn't take a punch the same way anymore. We saw him get beat by Glenn Johnson, who just ran across the ring. Roy just did nothing but stand against the ropes for more than half of the round. I mean, it clearly wasn't the same Roy. And it was in the Glenn Johnson fights when I said, in the first round, I'm going, Roy need to hang it up. First round, I'm saying Roy need to hang it up. And people, nah, he gonna win, man. He gonna win. I'm like, Roy need to hang it up. Roy is done. When have you ever seen Roy used to invite you in that corner? Roy would go put his back against the ropes. Come on, and light you up. Go back to the ropes. This Roy Jones was just standing there covering up. His defense was just standing there covering. He was reluctant to throw punches. He wasn't putting combinations together. And I know when a fighter gets to that point where they only throw one shot at a time, they're scared. Not bitchy punk scared, but scared like something's going to come in and they're going to get hit. He no longer has confidence in his reflexes. He no longer have confidence that his legs can get him out of harm's way. Okay? So he's reduced to just throwing one punch at a time. Okay? Worried about what's coming back in. See, when you've been around and you yourself can do the same things, you can fight your ass off and you have those abilities to do these things, you can identify with it better than people who don't. And that's one of the reasons, too, why non-fighters are so blown away by what fighters do because they can't do it. So they like, oh, wow, did you see that? Which is why other fighters will go, yeah, that was a good shot. But non-fighters are, oh my God, because they can't do it. So a lot of times when you say certain things, people don't understand why. It's like I said, when I picked Teofimo to beat Lomachenko, people just didn't understand why. Right? There's several fights. And like I'm picking Dubois to beat Joe Joyce. I've made it clear as to why. And people that's going, yeah, but there's no argument, man. You're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. But I just gave my reasons why I think Dubois is going to destroy Joe Joyce. But when it happens, when the fight happens, if what I say happened, it's not about I told you. It's things that I see that other people just overlook. And I haven't been wrong yet. Some things you just feel that you might, and I've explained why. It wasn't hard to do that, but certain things you can't even really put in words. You get that, you know what, I'm going with this guy. I'm going with my hunch. And it's based off what you see. Now, I don't think Kell Brook, like I said, I hope he doesn't stick around to try to make the wrong people happy. You know, do what you do. And my thing is, when you training and you don't see improvement in a fighter, and you see that the guy has the knowledge of boxing, he has experience, but can no longer do what he used to. You always got to ask yourself: is it necessary for this person to go in there and take this punishment? Because that's exactly what's going to happen. You know, look at what happened. The fact that Errol Spence chops you down, breaks you down. He's like a pit bull. He's like Pac-Man. He just keep coming, right? And that's what he does. He has that grit. So it doesn't matter if Kell Brook was out boxing. The point is who won the fight. Okay, I always use this analogy. Like, you know, Michael Jordan was so great at basketball. The Bulls as a team was so great that Allen Iverson, remember that play? Crossed over, shook Michael Jordan out of his boots. Remember that? Everybody marveled at that one play. Oh, he shook Jordan. They talked about that play. They showed that highlight on every sports channel. Anywhere they play the news, where they show sport, they showed it on every one of them, and made such a big deal that they forgot that Jordan scored 35 points and the Bulls won that game. They were so focused on that one highlight that you think that they went in and crushed the Bulls. No, they got beat. And Jordan did the same things. Jordan had better highlights than that. But guess what? It's Jordan. We're used to seeing that. Oh, but you're not supposed to be able to do that against Jordan. So when it happened, it's like, oh shit. But what was more important? What's more important? That you have a play that people are going to remember versus a guy with 6 championships and we still won that game. So people get off of what's important and they start to focus on the other things. Like I said, both fighters went in and did what they had to do. I salute both of them. I wish them nothing but the best. I hope Kell Brook, whatever decisions he make, I hope that it works out for him for the better. Same thing. But even me, myself, Amir Khan versus Brooke, I want to see that fight as well. I'm over it. I was over that fight years ago. And it didn't happen when it should have. I don't see the point of it happening now. But anyway, look, y'all, this is all I'm going to say on this video. Never fall in love with lies, and remember the truth brings hate out of people. I'll catch y'all on the next one.